pasta, so the broken spaghetti, cooked in a little bit of broth, and then she'll say, okay, put a bit of grana on top, because that's going to make you really strong. So that's an understanding that the Italian had about this cheese. And it's absolutely true. So 15 grams of this cheese contains as much calcium than 1.5 liter of milk. So this is like it's something really. It can make a meal, and sometimes it's what you carry in your when you go mushroom hunting, you have a little bit of salami and you have a little bit of this in your little pocket or whatever, and that's what you're eating as you're going up the mountain to get that strength. Or even when you ski, sometimes you have like a little bit of cheese as you're skiing along, because it's also transportable. Obviously, Grana Padano has been with us for so many years. The Benedictine is a produce. I love the name. It's made of two things, grana and padano. Okay, so grana means grain. In fact, the grain of this cheese is granuloso. It's not like a soft cheese, it's a hard cheese, and it has this grain that comes through all the time. And Padano is a description of the production of area, which is the Padania Valley. The Padania Valley is where the Po River comes down. It's one of the wealthiest and one of the most productive agricultural area in Italy. Okay, it's been sort of the Benedict monks start to bonify the whole area. So we're talking about thousands of years of work. Here we say they used to say is the sea meet the land. Apparently, right in the middle of the Padania Lake, there was a lake, an enormous lake, or an enormous swamp with absolutely massive monsters, and there's all this saying about what was in this area. And slowly, starting with the monks, and then obviously the people that work for them, kind of like bonify the area, finding then everything then comes out with the erosion from the Alps brought enormous goodness. So you can have like some very high agriculture. So that's where all the grain then is grown to feed the animal, is grown in the Padania region. So in the area, so you having cow then are fed with the grain, then which is sort of like a maize, then is grown in the area. So it's a very sort of like organic sort of way of producing something. Obviously, this is one of the great advantages of this cheese is then it travels on these big forms, then they are about like 20 to 40 kilos, depends on the size you want to make them. And, then you can actually roll it down the road, You can see there's no need of fridge. It doesn't suffer if it gets hot or cold. Obviously, if you leave it under the sun, it'll sweat. But, it doesn't lose its organoleptic quality. So this is a very important thing. And we talked about the fact that each of the cheese, on the rind, okay, we have the sort of is marked with fires. So that's guarantee the quality of what you're having. So and the yellow sort of marks, then is that one, then is carried as well on the cheese that is sold grated all over the world. This is a little bit I don't know, but let's say that I see it as a complete ingredient in my cuisine. So it's part of a recipe. It is not, it's when you use it in a recipe, it really uses to do flavors. And when we're talking about, a Mediterranean diet, so a diet that maybe contain less salt, that's how you add few flavors. You cannot imagine a nice minestrone, which is great, a little bit of parmesan of the Grana Padano on top, and you have a fantastic sort of effect. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to show you a little video there. That
tools are required: a forked knife, an almond-shaped knife, and a spatula knife. The cutter gently cuts a line with a hooked knife. The almond-shaped knife is then inserted at a depth of 1 centimetre in a corner of the upper part of the wheel. The same procedure is repeated with a second almond-shaped knife in the opposite corner. The spatula knife is then inserted at the centre of the trace line that connects the two corners, staying in a vertical position. All three knives are removed, the wheel is turned over, and the procedure is repeated.
very strange, you know, to have, you know, in the country like ours, we have such a different, you know, obviously the microclimate and everything else is different, but we have such a different view of how, you know, our cheese should be, okay? Developed and as produced like in higher quantity because he has managed to feed the population as well. When, you know, the south of Italy, when there was like a bad year or a bad storm or earthquake or something like that, the whole thing would implode and thousands of people would die of starvation. While, you know, it's ham and all these produce then have kept the population always to a certain level and always growing, you know. And so, which saw my granddad, and he did business with my uncle that was the guy who was in charge of running the thing. And my uncle was a very crafty man, and he would go with his car all the way to San Daniele and buy this ham, like fill up the back of the car of this, you know, Fiat 1100, fill it up with 35, 40 or 50 hams. And then I remember we were waiting, you know, on the little wall outside the restaurant saying, he's coming back, he's coming back, he's coming back. And then he'd come back and we all were allowed to carry one. And my granddad would be inside the fridge and he'll hang them and we'll carry the ham to them. So I have a little attachment to this actually hunch of meat here. And I remember my first time then I see some other ham because, you know, the particularity of the San Daniele, it comes with the gambuccio. So with the little shank, so the little feet is still attached. There is a reason to that, and we'll go through that. And now at the moment it's covered, but for decency. And the first time I saw the great, the fact that it was under a papal sort of the Pope is running this area, and he allowed San Daniele to have this sort of free market, because, you know, every market would be taxed, especially, you know, the Venetians were very, very good at taxing, and, you know, that was their main thing, taxing anything, salt, tea, anything that they passed through Venice, they tax. Anything went up or down, they tax. And so any market will have some tax put on it. But, you know, San Daniele, for this papal sort of, and I remember I'm terrible with dates, but it's like, it was a patriarchal fiefdom from the 7th century. So that's, you know, like long time ago. You have some animal that has to move in a different way. So you have a completely different consistency on their muscle, and, you know, that let's say a bit healthier animal than the animal that is being caged and just allowed to fatten for such a long time. They say that, you know, like the free market was sort of guaranteed in 1063 was guaranteed, and then Frederick in the 2032 confirmed the freedom of this market. So, and that allowed these people all of it. Yeah. Okay, so wherever you go, and you wouldn't even go to shop and buy a ham. You go to the salumiere and you buy the whole ham, and you take the whole ham home and you have it hanging on. And in periods of great, when there was famine, the ham would be hanged in the middle of the table, and so when it was all eaten, the bone was left there, and then they would serve like polenta or something like that, and then you will touch with the polenta the bone, and whatever flavor comes out of it, that's what you got. That's how they actually feed themselves.